Rangers and saw the size of them today, and then the production increase. But the biggest surprise, and perhaps on the game, is today, the active game, is Albert Pujols. I mean, he's one of the best players in the game, and you have to wonder where they go from here and what's going on with the Cardinals, because they have Fernando Tatis is on there, as well as, of course, Mark McGwire. I think that is a huge story. Also, if you look at some of the worst attitudes in baseball, the ones known for their volcanic eruptions, their tempers, they're almost all on this list. John Rocker on the list. Carl Everett, Raul Mondesi, Milton Bradley, Jose Offerman, who took a bat to a pitcher in the minor leagues this year, on the list.
Yeah. Perhaps that could be an explainer for some of that behavior. Ivan, the feeling that you get from reading, the build-up to this report is that the Players Union is really not on board with all of this. Is this going to be enough to affect major change in baseball?
I would hope so. But remember, the technology is very advanced now. Players will still use steroids. Believe me, there is too much money at stake. Any competitive advantage will be taken by a player. Believe me, new designer steroids, and more importantly, masking agents. So when they test you for steroids,
it's a simple answer to that. Well, that's fine. But here's it. If you're a guy and you're trying to break into Major League Baseball and you don't have 40 agents like Alex Rodriguez has around you, you're not going to risk a lifetime ban by getting caught using HGH when you think you can make it on your own. You've got to make the penalty so great it is not worth the risk.
Let me tell you something. There is so much money at stake here. If you're a poor kid, if you have a chance to make $5 or $10 million a year, if you have a chance to find your dream as a Major League Baseball player,
there are guys making $10 million without the drugs.
Pardon me?
You can make $10 million without using drugs. Not everybody in this league is on them.
Let me tell you something. The owners made money off of this. The players made money off of this. Major League Baseball made money off of this. After the '94 strike and the World Series was canceled, everybody wanted more offense. They wanted an action-packed, fun game. New ballparks were built, record profits, players' salaries zooming up. You can't tell me this report is going to stop players from using steroids. There are new steroids coming out.
It's testing. They're not going to voluntarily do anything. You got to test these players. You have to make the penalties stiff. And believe it or not, Congress deserved, and Jose Canseco deserved more credit than anyone else. When he came out and started naming names, started talking about how it's done, how it's procured, and when Congress embarrassed Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and Rafael Palmeiro. Nobody wants this. Adidas doesn't want you. Nike doesn't want you if you are on HGH.
So
now that it's exposed,
what you're
not going to happen.
What you're saying, Ivan, is that
repopularize baseball. You have to understand that. Players will find a way to get a competitive advantage. This is a State of the Union report on baseball. No players cooperated with this. They got most of their information from a bat boy who was part of a plea agreement, came forth and snitched on all these players.
You had to go around and to do this. You had to get Congress involved. You had to get the FBI involved. You had to get a special commission. The players have not cooperated. You're 100% right.
The problem
they got to be forced.
The real problem with this issue is kids in junior high school and college. They think steroids is the way to make it. They look at these guys, all these ball players, these successful ball players. They say, if they took it, I'll take it. The problem is with the kids, the youth. If a Major League Baseball player has made it and he's going to take steroids, he can't do anything.
Ivan, why is it that the players are not concerned enough, apparently, about the effect? I mean, they're concerned, obviously, on their Hall of Fame potential, but they're apparently not concerned enough about the effect that it has on kids to want to vote for, lifetime bans or hard, big crackdowns on steroids.
Now we're talking. We need players to go out in the community, players who have been named in this report, players who have admittedly used steroids, to go out into the community, talk to these kids and say steroids is wrong, they're dangerous, don't do it. However, it's easier said than done, and money talks, and there's a lot of money in Major League Baseball. And believe me, it's not just baseball, it's football, it's basketball, Olympic sports. This is across the board. This is the commissioner trying to document, trying to talk about the steroid era from the 80s and 90s, etc. But no player wanted to cooperate with George Mitchell. He got most of his information from a bat boy who turned steroid dealer, and that's the report. But for him, this report would be pretty much blank. And what players did,
it's absolutely true. That's why it's so important. At 2 o'clock today, George Mitchell says, here's the report, here's my recommendations. Very important. Bud Selig at 4:30 says, this is what I think of the report, this is what I'm going to do with the recommendations. And then at 6 o'clock, the most important one yet. What is the Players Union going to do? Are they going to say, I don't agree with this list. I think we're going to sue George Mitchell. And that's going to be the key. And if they don't step up, then Congress is going to come back because they don't want to see George Mitchell humiliated, and they scored big points last time. They hauled the big names in front of them.
The Players Union is concerned about suspensions. They don't want players suspended if their players are named on this report. That's what they're worried about. The report is going to have policy recommendations to have neutral testing by a neutral body so there's no conflict. They're going to talk about the drug culture in baseball, identify the problem, and name these players and document what happened for history. This report is for history, for Bud Selig's legacy. It's a very sad state of affairs for Major League Baseball.
Ivan Golde and Brian Kilmeade, thank you both. Now, Bud Selig commissioned this report, commissioned George Mitchell to write it. After a certain book came out, a book called Game of Shadows, it exposed steroid use in baseball, focused especially on the slugger Barry Bonds. Lance Williams, one of the authors of that book, is joining us now on the phone. Lance, any surprises to you in this list that's coming out?
Well, we have to be careful. I noticed that WNBC in New York posted a list and now has pulled it back because there are errors in it. So we do have to be careful here. Assuming that this player or that player has been identified as a steroid user in advance of seeing the report. I'm sure the report will have names, and some of the names will be new, and depending on whether you've been following this closely or not, you're going to be surprised.
We just heard Ivan Golde suggesting that he thinks masking agents and that kind of thing are going to come out. And that steroids are going to be part of baseball for a long time. Obviously, in all the work you did investigating the Balco labs, you have a pretty good handle on what is and what isn't possible. Can you push steroids out of Major League Baseball?
Well, right now, the cheaters are ahead of the drug testers. There's no question about it. And so a dedicated drug cheat is going to find a way around the protocols. There's no question about that. And baseball's testing program is not nearly as tough as the one in the Olympic sports. On the other hand, you can bear down on the problem, and especially with law enforcement getting involved, I think it's possible to get a handle on drug cheating, but to eradicate it, it will require scientific advances in testing that haven't occurred yet.
Lance Williams, the co-author of Game of Shadows. Lance, thank you.
And as
Lance, thanks so much.
Brian and everybody has been pointing out, too, this report has not been officially released. Doesn't get released for another 90 minutes or so. So these names that are out there are all reportedly on the list, and that's what we've been bringing you. So we'll get you updates as soon as we get them. Todd Connor is out there on the scene for us for this Mitchell report. We'll let you know when we know more.